I called through a regular.
You what?
I called through the regular phone number, so there's
Oh,
no vision. Is that okay? There's only voice.
Yeah, that's fine. That's great.
Okay.
So, yeah, let's get started. Hi, good morning. This is Dr. Dave Nelson, and we are fortunate to have Dr. Scoglio on the call this morning. And we're going to be talking about the immune system, be talking about how effectively we can use Klamax to improve our bodies and our health. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Dr. Scoglio, there's been a lot of questions about and comments, and we're going to open up the calls to everyone. We want to talk about how Klamax is effective for supporting the immune system, natural killer cells. And so if you could start us out, that'd be great. And we'll probably have some questions and comments that may come forth from that.
Okay. All right. Hopefully the connection will stay on.
Okay.
Well, let me say that, of course, talking about the immune system is a very complex subject. I mean, it could take, days to unravel it. If we consider the fact that, with the immune system, there's not only the very complex array of cells and cytokines and so forth that are involved, that, there's all the inflammatory processes related to it. All the big, huge subject of autoimmunity is another very big subject. So I'll try to simplify it and to get into some of the most essential points. We know that the immune system, our immune system is based on white blood cell leukocytes, which are divided into main groups: granulocytes, agranulocytes, and also on the other big class of the polymorphonucleated cell, basophils, eosinophils, and neutrophils mostly. These are the main actors of our immune system. And well, one thing I want to say is that the first one, like the polymorphonucleated cells, work mainly through inflammation, by stimulating inflammation, by releasing, substances like histamine, and even, like free radicals. They use free radicals as a tool against pathogens. The other ones, especially the T cells and the natural killer cell, they're directly cytotoxic, and they kill. That's why they're called killer cells. And the difference between T cells and natural killer cells, that T cells are killer cells, but they're not in a way natural, because their action is humorally mediated by also B cells and other antibodies. Whereas natural killer cells, they don't give a damn. They kill everything that is non-self immediately, especially viruses and cancer. So the first one, the first polymorphonucleated cells body is very effective mostly on bacteria and fungi, whereas the second big group, the white blood cell, is very, very effective on viruses and cancer cells. Now, having given this general, very vague, very simple introduction, what was found was that already 15 years ago, it was found that with the whole Klamax algae, there was a significant effect on the immune system. What type of effect? They gave 1.5 grams to people, and then they went to see what was happening in the blood, and they found that there was an increase in the blood of mainly natural killer cells. They found, but it was a special type of activity. It was slow in the sense that it took the participants to that study about 1 month to reach the level of 40% mobilization of natural killer cells. which means, you know, the first day, if they were naive, like they started on the algae, you know, that very moment, that very day, they would get like a mobilization of a few percent, 3-4%, and then the second day would be 5-6%, and so forth, until after 1 month of taking the product, they would get into you know, about 40% natural killer cell mobilization. Now, also, it's important the fact that this mobilization was temporary, meaning it was, you know, the natural killer cells would go out from the blood into tissues for 3-4 hours, and then they would, you know, this would go down, and as if they were coming back to the, because natural killer cells actually have a long life, also like T cells, that can be weeks, as opposed to other immune cells which last very shortly. And then, so they would come back, you know, into their site of deposit. And so that's why, for instance, at that point, many years ago, we used to say, well, take at least, you know, 1.5 grams of algae 3 times a day, you know, which would make like a 4.5-5 grams a day of whole algae to support your immune system. And we would get significant results. Now, when the research tried to define what were the molecules responsible for this type of mobilization, initially, it was said that they were polysaccharides, because we know that polysaccharides have kind of this immune activity, and the algae have also polysaccharides, so sure they could have some kind of role there. Then, but then it was said that it was possibly more small peptides, although it wasn't clarified what it was. Finally, a few years ago, there was a study in which it was shown that actually the molecule responsible for this immune cells mobilization was actually phenylethylamine. Now, we've talked about phenylethylamine. Phenylethylamine is the, probably together with the alpha phycocyanins, the 2 most important molecules. There's many molecules in Klamax, you know, there's polyphenols, carotenes, many other things, minerals, relevant minerals, but, you know, the 2 more, you know, mycosporin-like amino acids, they're called, which is another interesting antioxidant substance. But the 2 king and queen, I would say, I don't know, of the product are, of course, the phycocyanins on the one end and the phenylethylamine on the other end. Now, phenylethylamine was found to have receptor for this study found that all the immune cells, the B cells, T cells, and natural killer cells, that is all this group of agranulocytes, contain receptors for monoamines, and especially active with phenylethylamine, which means they discover that when phenylethylamine gets into the body and is properly protected by anti-MAO-B, like there are in the algae, like phycocyanin, like mycosporin, like amino acids, which protect phenylethylamine from the destruction of monoamine oxidase B enzymes, which start destroying it as soon as you take it from in the stomach and the gut. So when it gets into contact with you know, bone marrow or blood and so forth, where these immune cells are, it attaches to them and they start activating and migrating. So this might be the reason why, whereas with the whole algae, which has a content of phenylethylamine which is relatively low, it's about 2-3 milligrams per gram, as opposed to Klamax, which in one dose has about 15 to 18 milligrams, that is 6 times more of PEA, of phenylethylamine, the result is so much faster. I mean, we have testimonials that maybe later I will read a few, if you want, of people, you know, getting over flu in 1 day, or resolving chronic immune problems that they had for 20 years in 1 week, in 1 or 2 weeks. So there seems to be an activity so deep and so fast that can only be explained now by this much higher concentration of this fundamental molecule. of phenylethylamine. Now, the other thing that is very relevant, though, is the component that has to do with phycocyanins on the immune system. Why? Because one other thing that was found in that original study on the algae was that the polymorphonucleated cells, which, as I said, they work through mainly inflammation, like histamine and free radicals. Actually, in that study, they found that the inflammation went down. Their inflammatory activity went down, which didn't mean that they were less active. It just meant that they needed less, inflammatory weapons to work, so that their shooting inflammatory molecules or histamine would go down. And now we don't know what this could be done to, but could be attributed to specifically, but certainly given the very high potential power of alpha phycocyanins against inflammation, which I don't know if I said before, but there's a study we did recently last year at my university in Urbino, which at some point we may publish, where we found that these alpha phycocyanins are effective at the anti-inflammatory level already at the level of picomolar, that is below the homeopathic level in a way, which means whenever you take like 1 or 2 doses of Klamax, it's going to be everywhere in your body acting at the anti-inflammatory level very fast. Now, coming back to the immune system, so it's very likely that these phycocyanins and maybe other synergic molecules lower the inflammatory activity of the polymorphonucleated cell and possibly also the histamine. Here I want to say something also about allergies, which is also a very important immune topic. I've had many results over the years on all sorts of allergies. People that within 1 to 2 months, if they even before the season, if they start 1 to 2 months, 3 months before the season, they go through the season almost with no symptoms at all. And that could be also for 2 reasons mainly. One could be this ability probably of phycocyanins and maybe other synergic molecules in there, which lower histamine, the activity of histamine and free radicals, inflammation. And also there's another thing which I need to add, and that is, of course, there's another component of the immune activity which can also get into hyperimmunity, which is the production of prostaglandins, right? Eicosanoids, prostaglandins, leukotrienes, thromboxanes, right? And phycocyanins are very powerful inhibitors of both cyclooxygenase enzymes and lipooxygenase enzymes. What that means that they are selective inhibitors of COX-2, so they lower the inflammatory prostaglandins, and they allow still the anti-inflammatory prostaglandin to act. But also they have a specific activity on inhibiting leukotriene before, which is the possibly most important leukotriene in allergic reactions. So altogether, this complex, vast array of actions on all the immune system has a lot of activities on viruses. We have a testimonial of a lady with a very important viral disease, which again she solved it in pretty rapidly. Of course, on cancer, because natural killer cells are the most important forefront of our body immune system against cancer, and but also allergy. So I wanted to conclude this introduction by saying that, for instance, some people, when you say that, they can say, oh well, then we have to be careful because when there is autoimmunity, because it's an immunostimulant. And I think actually that's not the case. You can define it as an immunomodulator because it does not stimulate again, as with all natural molecules, they are used by our body. There are so many activities, that they're used by our body as it's needed. And so I don't think it would hyperactivate when it's not required. But also the fact that the immune enhancement, strengthening, goes along with the lowering of the inflammation, clearly defines this as an immunomodulator, and certainly does not create any problem with autoimmune disease, on which we also have, we've had very significant results. So I don't know. I hope it's been a good introduction, and if you guys want to discuss it, that's good.
Yes, that's very good. So my question, I'll open it to the group here. Let's touch on. I was going to ask you about lupus, MS. It would most likely have an effect on supporting that effect of those symptoms of lupus and MS.
Yeah. I would say that, again, these are actually pathologies where I've seen over the years significant results. And of course, one reason for that is, clearly the anti-inflammatory, the very significant anti-inflammatory activity. I would say also the immune enhancement. But for MS particularly, we have that study on animal study that showed the ability of clamine, one of the two components of Klamax, to enhance the product very significantly, 500%, 5 times the production of cerebral erythropoietin. And cerebral erythropoietin is actually the precursor of all the neural stem cells and all the neurotransmitters, and has been actually used to produce a synthetic drug, which is called recombinant erythropoietin, as a drug specific for MS. Why? Because, of course, when erythropoietin, for instance, when we have a stroke, the first reaction of our body is to produce as much as it can of erythropoietin, because that stimulates the repairing of the lesion in the brain through the stem cells. And of course, that applies also to the myelin of the nerves with the MS. So they did this as a drug. The problem with that was that it doesn't really work because it's synthetic, it's modified. And there are already reports saying, well, it doesn't work much and has a lot of very heavy side effects. And I've found at least one article claiming, saying, oh, well, we should really find something that stimulates the endogenous erythropoietin, which is exactly what this product does. So, yes, I would think that it, again, would be very useful in against these pathologies, also for this, but also for the anti-inflammatory and the immune modulating activity as well. I just wanted to conclude that I think one of the very interesting actions of this product, which are in a way are new for me too, because before Klamax I never used the two extracts together, although I thought for many years to do it, but never had a chance to make a product combining the two extracts together. I mean, the activities are neurological, immunological, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant, anti-cancer, and so forth, that when you put them all together, of course, you have a synergy that it becomes very, very active and very interesting.
Have you found in your studies and in the research how Klamax can be supportive for heavy metals and chemicals? And we talked earlier about the free radicals, but have you found any how the Klamax works on some toxic load?
On what, sorry?
How Klamax can help in the toxic load of the body.
Right. I have to say, I've had many experiences of detox, and we have it already with a lot of detoxification. People feeling a lot of detoxification. I've had over the years many results, for instance, with even serious cases and advanced cases of hepatitis. In relation to heavy metals, I would say that there was a study which I might have somewhere, I don't know, but that was done by the doctors of the U.S. Army, like medical doctors of the U.S. Army, which they took a cyanobacteria from the sea, and they actually found that this cyanobacterium had molecules in it that were able to absorb up to 30% of their weight in heavy metals. This actually goes along with my experience, because I've seen quite a few cases of people intoxicated. Even, I had a couple of cases of people with fillings in their teeth, of heavy metal fillings in their teeth, or people even intoxicated by drugs, which, as you know, are usually very heavy with heavy metals like aluminum, mercury, and so forth. And I've seen like people that within a few weeks they would have a kind of a releasing crisis where they would even feel the taste of metal in their mouth as a kind of a healing crisis, and then they would go move beyond this stage. So yes, I would say that on heavy metals it's probably very active, and generally it is I don't know how exactly it does the detoxification, certainly by the antioxidant activity, the anti-lipoperoxidation activity, anti-inflammatory activity, and enhancement of probably kidney activity. I've had quite a few cases of people, for instance, who after they started taking the algae, they discovered they had sand in their kidneys, which was expelled by taking the product. So yes, I would say that it's also very active in that respect.
And that's probably...
and that is one of the problems why, and that's what I say. One of the problem of Klamax is in a way that is too powerful a detoxifier. So people who are really intoxicated, when they start taking it, they might have some reaction. Sometimes if it's gastrointestinal intoxication, we had a few cases of people vomiting, for instance, or people having diarrhea or things like that, or people having some skin manifestations. And usually what I say when this happens, I say try to double or triple the dose, because that usually helps with or headaches or whatever. That helps move on the other side faster and do the cleansing much faster. But usually what it is, not usually, when you have reactions like that, it's always a symptoms of detoxification, essentially.
Okay. I had a couple of questions that came in. What about dosages for pregnancy and also nursing mothers?
Right. Well, it's difficult to say. I would say that it's very, in a way, it's very individual. In general, I would say that if one wants to have like a significant result, I would do at least a couple of weeks by taking, half a scoop 4 times a day. Okay. And then maybe if you don't have serious problems, you can go down to half a scoop once a day, as a maintenance. Or, when you have really serious problems, you can also go up to 6. But in theory, you could take the whole damn bottle at once and there would be no problem. I've done that once. I had 50 capsules I took in one day just to see what was happening. And of course, nothing happened. Right. Because the body uses what it needs, and the rest might just might just excrete it. In terms of pregnancy, also there I've always seen very good results with having good pregnancies, people, women not having as much tiredness or nausea or problems associated with pregnancy. And usually the child comes out really, really healthy but
Yes,
at the
yes.
end of it, because also of all the nutrition that is there. I would think that, half a scoop, 4 times a day would be ideal. Yeah.
We know that the gut and the stomach is the first line of the immune system. So the power of Klamax to help in restoration and healing of the gut is one of the primary things I see that Klamax can help with. Could you comment on it?
Yes. That's actually a very good point. I'm actually a big supporter of the theory of leaky gut syndrome as the main cause of both inflammation and autoimmunity. And most diseases today seems to be defined as autoimmune diseases anyway. So the repairing of the intestinal lining, of course, is fundamental. Clearly, in my approach, I also use a very powerful probiotic grown with Klamax, which becomes really, really powerful. And I know David has used them, and I've seen that I'm actually telling the truth about the power of this probiotic, which I hope to introduce into IGAL in the future. Yes. But apart from that, Klamax itself has a very, very powerful ability to help with leaky gut and the compromission of the membrane for two reasons. One is phycocyanins stimulate fibroblasts, which are the stem cells of the body, in a way, of the derma, of the skin, of the membranes, and they have a very, very powerful wound healing property, and that means that when you take Klamax, the phycocyanins that are there certainly help repairing through the somatic stem cells the lining of the gut. Now, there's another thing which just came recently, and that is, which is at the base of another patent that I did relative to the growth of this probiotic bacteria, and which was also confirmed by the National Research Center in Italy when they did trial on intestinal tissue, and that is the very powerful prebiotic activity of this product. When we grow probiotics, we compare the growth of probiotics by themselves on the one end, and grown together with Klamax, the phycocyanin extract. I just say that what we found is that normally after 3 days, the bacteria stops growing. When it's grown with Klamax, it actually keeps going for, up and beyond 10 days, which technically make these bacteria immortal. So it's a very, very powerful probiotic, which means very likely it's going to help your good bacteria, and it's actually going to fight the bad bacteria. The reason for that is because there are studies where it shows that the algae. Actually, there was a high school student in Klamath Falls who arrived among the first at a student science competition, and her study was that she showed that the algae had a very powerful anti-E. coli activity. So again, I would say that it can be very helpful both in repairing the lining and supporting your bacterial flora. In fact, one testimonial that I was pretty amazed about, it's of a lady who said that after 1 month, she went to be tested for celiac disease, and the doctor told her that he thought that she didn't have celiac disease. She was not a celiac anymore, and she could go back to eating normally. So that was very amazing for her and amazing for me as well when I read the testimony. I'm not saying that, by itself, this is guaranteed, but certainly it's a very remarkable result. And together with the probiotic that I'm talking about, I'm pretty sure all intestinal problems, both from Crohn to IBS, we had another testimonial about IBS, for instance, just with Klamax, and all, can be really normalized pretty fast.
Great. Questions? Anyone?
Hi, David. I put my question in the chat box.
Okay. So the question is, Dr. Scoglio, how does Klamax interact with antiviral, shingles virus? How would it cancel out the viral killing capacity of the pharmaceutical or stimulate the immune response? Question comes from user taking Klamax for 3 months and then having antibody count for fighting shingles over 4,000 when normal count is 135. Any insights?
Okay, you have to explain this better to me because I'm not sure I understand. So this person had shingles.
Yes, I'm here to answer, to make it clear for you. Yes. So the shingle virus had gotten caught in the nerve ending. So she's experiencing the neuralgia. And she had been taking Klamax for 3 months with no improvement on the pain level. So when they took blood to count the antibodies for the shingles virus, varicella zoster, the lab stopped counting after 4,000 because the normal count to fight shingles antibodies is 135. So we're trying to understand, is the Klamax overstimulating the antibodies? Is any insight about how that might be working together?
So how much Klamax was she taking?
4 times a day, a full to a half a scoop. That, yeah.
And this together with a drug?
Correct.
I don't know. I don't know what's happening there because the problem is I've had many cases, for instance, of I never had a shingle, but I've had many cases of how do you say the other zoster,
herpes,
the herpes zoster. I've had many cases of hepatitis. People not only improving pretty rapidly, but eventually even. I had one case of a person negativizing the virus, the hepatitis virus. So I don't know what's going on, frankly. I don't know why the antibody is rising and why this person is feeling no improvement. How does she feel in general?
In general, I would say the neuralgia pain has, significantly impacted her quality of life. And there's just seems to be no improvement, even with, the high dosage of the Klamax, but also taking the antiviral at the same time, just because that's what's being offered to her. Obviously, nobody really knows what's going on. So I thought maybe you might understand what we're doing, how that's working, interacting with the antiviral and a virus in the system.
No, frankly, I never had any such experience. And my instinctive reaction would be that, of course, the problem might be caused by the antiviral. But, this is my instinct. So I don't know because I never had any case like that. And in fact, all my experiences on any type of viral problem has been the opposite. As I said, we have a testimonial of a lady, I don't remember what kind of virus it is, but it's specific type of virus that she was affected by for years. And after 3 bottles of Klamax, she was cleared of it completely. So I really don't know what's going on.
Right.
If I may interject something, Fawn, a couple of things. It would seem to me like the effects of the Klamax and the medication are cumulative, raising the antibody titer. But secondarily, there may be a degree of permanent or semi-permanent nerve damage that'll take the stem cells some time to repair.
Do we have any understanding documentation on how long it might take to repair something like that, nerve damage with the Klamax?
Nerve damage is variable.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's variable. Some people are, experience a pretty fast recovery. Some people may take long. I don't know. But have you checked what kind of are the side effects of the antiviral?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the word you said.
No, have you checked what are the listed side effects of the antiviral? Because often
Yes.
I find that when there is no solution to a case, I go to look at the information sheet, and I find many of the things that the person experiences are due to the drug, and the drug side effects. So I don't know. I'm just
Right. Yeah. It's the research I've done, the articles I have, the antivirals, they're showing that there is no significant side effects. That's what they're saying. And the thing is, she was taking the Klamax before the antiviral for 3 months.
Mhm.
That's when she got the over 4,000 count. 2 months later, on the antiviral with the Klamax, the count hasn't changed at all. So that's why I was just wondering if we had any insight to share with her. But it's
so there's a huge if I understand, there's a huge count of antibodies.
correct.
All right.
One further thing, Fawn, is as far as the nerves go, I know for a fact I treat it all the time, and in fact, I have a small case of simplex on my back, that when, if there's alignment issues with the spine, it irritates the nerve, and that irritation is enough to decrease the resistance of the nerve, and you'll get that. So we've had some results with working on the spine of those people with persistent pain after herpes.
Great. Thank you for that, Dr. Ken.
Sorry, but yeah.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for not being able to help more, but
We're learning as we go, right?
yeah, absolutely.
One further question, Dr. Scoglio, is with regard, of course, we're dealing with physicians trying to introduce the product to physicians and telling them that there's no potential problems with that. Can you shed any light on that, or if you had any experience with medical people either disputing effects or not?
Well, I have that, well, sometimes I do. For instance, one thing that I always run into with oncologists, because one of the things that Klamax does, of course, apart from being active on cancer, but that may be difficult to have it accepted by oncologists. But certainly it can be presented as something that actually helps a lot to minimize the side effects of chemotherapy. And I can swear by that because I've seen so many people not losing hair, not having any stomach problem, not having fatigue. I mean, it's really remarkable in its effect too. And there's also a study actually done by some Indian researchers who made an extract like Afamax, and they used it on mice with cisplatin chemotherapy, and they saw that adding orally Klamax, they would completely 100% eliminate any side effects on urea levels and and all damages to the kidneys. So the one that is certainly like something that could pass, for instance, with oncologists. Problem with oncologists is that they have one stupid idea which has no support whatsoever in science, and it's just like a myth that goes around oncologists, and that is that B12 is counterindicated for cancer patients, right? Because for some reason, because it participates in production and stimulation of red blood cells, it could participate in the stimulation of cancer cells. Of course, I went to look if there's anything in the literature on that. Of course, zero. I found only 3 studies in which B12 supplementation actually increased, even though shortly, the life of cancer patients. But that is usually one objection that I always find that is given to me. I usually respond by saying, well, that means then you tell your patients not to eat meat, eggs, fish, cheese, and any other source of B12. And of course, at that point, they don't know what to answer because they don't do that. So
the other question, of course, or the thing that they come up with is that you don't want to give them antioxidants because the cancer cells will take them up preferentially and protect themselves against the treatment. And I don't know if there's any evidence for that.
No, there's no evidence, but I think it's just I actually work with a group of in what is called integrative oncology in Italy, and they use a lot this product based on Klamax. And I remember a lady, I don't remember though which kind of marker. She suggested that we should look into this marker because the inhibition of, or the presence or not of this marker would say if it interferes with chemotherapy or not. But yeah, and this is one of the things that I looked into possibly doing in the future. But I just think, I have to say that more and more I find doctors who are more open to using natural products together with chemotherapy or other drugs. The other thing is usually, in my experience, actually very interesting because I've always found that when you do chemotherapy and, let's say, Klamax, usually, the cancer goes down pretty fast. So whatever it is, if it's chemotherapy, it's Klamax, or the two together, without all the problems, certainly it is active against the cancer. So I don't, that could be one evidence that certainly does not stop the, whatever the chemotherapy does. In fact, in many ways, one could say that it improves its ability to, attack the cancer cell without destroying the surrounding tissues. But having said that, I'm absolutely against chemotherapy myself, but we know that, it's very often it's impossible to avoid it. So unless, there's people who make that decision personally. So I've worked a lot with cancer patients who do chemotherapy and then they take the product. So I don't know what else.
I just want to touch. I want to touch one. Go back to this the herpes issue one more time. My experience and what I've found in a lot of the research is, the herpes virus, any virus. I would take a strong look at looking at heavy metal toxicity, mercury, heavy metals. And the viral load, Epstein-Barr, I definitely would take a look at the metal load for someone with the shingles and the high herpes count. There is a toxic load going on in the body.
So you're saying that what test are you recommending for that?
I would recommend a heavy metal screen. To determine heavy metals, I would make sure that person has, see if there's any mercury amalgams in her mouth, if there's any root canals going on, because that's going to have a direct effect on the immune response and in the body. And those are those two components. And if there's been any chemical toxicity exposures, Roundup, Raid, any of the chemical pesticides. But I would start looking at the mouth, the mercury, the amalgams, the dental work, if there's any nickel in her mouth, such as retainers, crowns, caps, porcelain fused to metal. Crowns are very toxic, and you set up a battery effect, which would stimulate that viral activity to propagate because your immune system is low because of the toxic load. That the mouth is one of the first things I would look at to see what's causing the high viral issue, because it's going to suppress that immune system.
Right. Well, maybe it is interesting because I know that she has mentioned root canals, and it is in her mouth. The neuralgia is actually in her mouth.
Oh yeah, there's a toxic load in her mouth because root canals is a dead tooth decaying, and that dead tooth decaying is putting out extremely toxic bacteria, more toxic than botulism in many cases. E. coli, strep, staph, streptococcus, aureus. I mean, there's some major bacteria that are formed because of because of root canal. There's no safe root canal. All root canals are toxic.
No, go ahead. If I can add something, I completely agree with this point. And I would probably say that if there is a permanent source of infection like that, clearly that could explain the high antibody load, because at that point, the introduction of Klamax could have stimulated a response. But of course, the response keeps going because the source of infection, it's permanent in a way, it keeps creating infection. I don't know if that makes sense, but that could be one explanation for this constant high load.
So
of antibodies.
Recommending then just having the root canal teeth taken out?
I would find a biological dentist. Don't go to any dentist. Find a biological dentist in your area. There's a company called Clifford Laboratories in Colorado Springs. You can call Clifford Laboratories, and they can give you a referral to a biological dentist. They work with all the biological dentists. So I would find a biological dentist in her area and definitely go get it, have it checked. And a dental CT scan, the new digital dental CT scans are more effective than a Panorex or just an X-ray. The 3D look gives you different looks on those teeth. I would take a look at that and see if there's anything going on, but definitely see a biological dentist.
Well, it's interesting because she actually brought me that 3D scan, and I looked at, and the dentists are telling her there's no infection anywhere.
Okay, I would have a second, third opinion on root canal.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And also look at as David says, look at the, any mercury in her mouth and any heavy metal in her mouth, because that's the other thing is, these actually mercury fillings, they get worse over time. The more time passes, the more they release toxins in the body. So that could be another source of constant infection by mercury release in our body. I would look into that too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ken, Dr. Ron, anything? Beverly has a question. I'm sorry, Beverly. I saw it here.
That's okay. Thank you. Dr. Stefano, I look after my mom. She's 96 years old, and I have her on Klamax, and I want to tell you, it has improved her balance, and she can now write her name again, and it helps the pain in her abdomen. But she had an episode, so it's amazing. We're very blessed with the product. And at 96, it's nice to see she can improve. My question, she had an episode and the doctor, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so the doctor's now wanting her to take aspirin, just the baby aspirin a day, which I do not want her to take because she has stomach issues and aspirin doesn't do well with her. But anyway, I'm wondering, does Klamax do the same as the aspirin will, to keep blood thin?
Yes, it actually does. In fact, one of the studies on phycocyanins shows that it's effective in, let's say, blood thinning as other anti-inflammatories like baby aspirin, with one difference, fundamental difference, that baby aspirin gives you on one side and takes on the other side, gives you ability to fluidify your blood, but at the same time creates lesions in your intestinal lining, and so create that autoimmune cascade, which again creates worse problems for the heart and the circulatory system. Whereas phycocyanins do the opposite. They do the same in terms of blood fluidification, but they repair the intestinal lining, the opposite. So I think in that way is actually much superior. One other thing I want to say is that since we're talking about this, I'm more often asked, and probably we talked about this before with some of you, but does this since has this ability to, this fibrinolytic activity, this ability to fluidify, to thin the blood or whatever, does this mean that cannot be used when you take a blood thinner like aspirin or the other drugs that are used for that? And my answer is I've never seen any problem, even if the person takes a blood thinner. Again, for one fundamental reason, and that is, if your blood is already thin enough, the body is not going to use phycocyanins to thin it to the hemorrhagic level. Just going to use it for something else, antioxidant, inflammatory, fibroblast, or whatever. So I never found any interference with blood thinning drugs. I just say that if one can make the choice, can certainly avoid taking those drugs because the product will do the same and more effectively, and without any of the side effects.
Thank you. That was my feeling, and I just needed to hear it from you.
Okay.
So, Dr. Scoglio, on that topic, with interactions to any medication, so what you're saying that Klamax is safe with any meds that someone is taking. You can use this as a supportive product with them.
Yes, absolutely. There's no interference with any drug. There's no bad effect from the interference. And actually, I think that even with the bad drugs, it manifests a positive synergic activity in the sense that it limits the side effects of the drug, and whatever is good in the action of the drug actually can be performed better because there's no side effect. So yes, it can be taken with any drug, no problem.
Great. Any other questions, comments?
I have one question. There's a couple of people have talked about when they began taking Klamax having some degree of constipation. Has that been mentioned by anybody else?
Yeah, that is one possible detoxification way in which the body detoxifies itself. When maybe toxins arise too much in the gut, it kind of gets clogged. But usually, either it's something temporary, or you can take like a laxative for a couple of days, and then it usually clears itself naturally. That's my experience. I don't know what happened there with your cases, but that's my experience.
One of the problems, of course, is that people will start on something, and if they have a symptom that they perceive as being negative, that's almost all the reason they need to stop instead of keep going. That's our challenge.
Well,
the other thing is just let me say on something like that. The other thing that can work is actually, again, doubling the dose, because one of the things that actually phenylethylamine does, the neurological activity of the product, it stimulates peristalsis. So if you have that constipation activity, if you increase the dose, usually that clears things by itself because of the stimulus to the peristalsis. We're actually doing a study on this in the National Research Center of Italy. They're actually showing, the first results show both a proper peristaltic activity but also an ability to limit the nervous contraction, the excessive nervous contraction. So again, and even there a balancing effect. But yes, if you do have a constipation, just tell the person, try to double the dose, and usually that works.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, and I find too that a lot of people tell you they're drinking plenty of water to move things through, and they're not drinking plenty of water. And especially as we get older, I notice myself that our thirst mechanism isn't as strong as when we were younger, and then we don't drink enough water, and when we get a little older, and particularly being a man, a lot of guys are concerned about getting up, going to the bathroom at night because they've got an enlarged prostate gland. So then they don't want to drink as much water, so they won't have to get up at night. So it's kind of a catch-22 with that water.
Right. Yeah. And one good thing about increasing the dosages of Klamax, you also drink more water because you have to take more drinks. So.
Right. Any other comments, questions?
There any updates on the progress of getting the Klamax into the sachet and timeline on that, or getting it up in America?
Yeah, well, we are at an intermediate stage in the sense that right now what we're doing, we're moving the product to manufacturing into the US. It's being done right now. The first 2,000, 3,000 bottles are being made in the US. And that will at least solve the problem of custom that we've had for, from the beginning. There's been such a problem in terms of ability to supply the US, but also Canada and so forth. So that is the first step. Second step is that hopefully in the fall, as soon as this summer, we should go and look for, sachet makers in the US. And as soon as we found a satisfactory one, probably in the fall, before the end of the year, we could move into sachet, which certainly will be more easy and more comfortable because, of course, there's less getting mixed up with the powder and so forth. So yes, hope my hope is to do it as fast as possible, but probably we'll still need another 4 or 5 months because right now we're working on just bringing the production, the manufacturing into the US. I just wanna say something about what I don't know if I told David, but I was in London a while ago, and in fact last week, and I met with these people in London who are also interested in Igalen, and I gave a couple of treatments to 2 ladies there. One of them, of course, one was aesthetic, and she had very good results on the face and so forth. But I want to talk about the other one because the other one is this doctor lady who has lupus, and she's already feeling better after 3 weeks of Klamax. More energy, she said, and less pain generally. She still has pain in her knees, so I gave her a chronic pain. She's had it for years. Like it's always there, and she has difficulty walking. She and so forth. So I gave her one treatment, 15 minutes in one knee, and she was totally amazed because the pain went away. she got up and said, "That's not possible. I don't have any pain in my knee. That's impossible." She was moving it everywhere. So that would be another very good tool at our disposal, at your disposal, because it's really, really powerful.
Yes.
Also on any therapeutic pain, muscle, bone issue. So.
Could I ask when you're going to have the professional papers? Just I have some people waiting for them because they're approaching some medical people.
The booklet, you mean?
Yes, yes.
It's ready. I think I'm going to put it on Amazon tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Download. Okay.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Good. I think in the end it came out of a good booklet. It's taken me a while, but I think it's good.
And Dr. Scoglio, how are you going to let iGalen distributors know about that? How is that going to be announced?
Right. That was my question too. I'm probably going to put the news into all the various iGalen Facebook sites.
Okay.
I'll probably tell Rajen if it's possible to put it in the iGalen official site. So
perfect. Okay.
But certainly I will put it in all the Facebook various Facebook pages. One last thing, if you have a couple minutes, which I need your help with as well.
Yeah.
I keep being bothered by people making confusion between Klamax and Klamax. In this last week, I've had 2 people saying, "Oh, our product is sold online at 1/3 of the price. You know, it's the same product, exactly the same product." And of course, then I ask, "Where is it?" I go check, and of course, it's just regular Klamax algae.
Okay.
So unfortunately, this was also generated by the initial presentation of the product by iGalen, which pushed mostly the nutritional profile rather than talking about the 2 extracts. But now that has been fixed. But for some reason, it still goes around because today there was a lady desperate. "But there's our product. It's exactly our product. And it's sold at 1/3 of the price. How is that possible?" And then I found out, and I said, "No, look, it's Klamax algae. It's not Klamax." So we need to educate people. This is not Klamax algae. This is 2 extracts, clamine and Afamax from Klamax algae, but it's not Klamax algae. All right. So
Correct.
if you help me to spread the word,
yes,
it'd be good. Okay.
We'll do that.
We'll do that. Yes.
All right. Okay. One other news is this. Yesterday, there's a certain Dr. McCauley, he's a spirulina guy, who keeps posting a video where he claims that Klamax algae is toxic and the lake is intoxicated and all this crap. So I sent him a mail yesterday, actually, because I was again notified by some other distributor and asking him, his ability to provide him all the proper information if you want. And if he doesn't, I'll just tell my lawyers to contact him. So we'll see what happens. But unfortunately, there's also these things happening.
Right. One more thing I was going to ask you. There's been comments about competition. And I mean, my response to that is we have no competition, but there's other companies out there trying to sell a product that sounds like Klamax, but obviously definitely isn't. Could you comment on that?
Yeah. Let me say something about it. Okay. In terms of stem cell activity, of course, you'll find competition in the sense that there's other products that claim to have a stem cell mobilization activity. And, we cannot do that, anything about that. Everybody will say that that product is more powerful in terms of stem cell mobilization, but that's not Klamax. One good thing, actually, I was pretty happy because I found that you might know that Christian Drapeau, who was one of the first to promote the algae or the algae extract for stem cell mobilization. And I actually found out over time that he was actually copying my patent, but that's another thing. Recently moved into Genèse with a stem cell product. And I thought I was preparing to do a legal battle because I thought this guy is going to again reproduce my extract, surreptitiously. And instead, I just saw the product, and the product is completely non-competing with us because it's composed of aloe vera, buckthorn, beta-glucans, and a little bit of whole AFA. So at least there's no competition there. The other thing is, as you know, stem tech now stays away from climatology. The only potential competition could be from this other company called Cerule, which is the ex-company of Drapeau, Desert Lake Technology, was a multi-level organization called Cerule. But again, even there, the product is mostly spirulina, is two other types of algae, spirulina and a macroalgae, which now I forgot what it's called. And there's a little bit, like 1/3 of the product is made by this extract, but we went to test it, and both the phycocyanins and the phenylethylamine are really minimal. There's like 2 milligrams in the product of phenylethylamine and very low phycocyanin. So I would say again that there's no competition at all even there. So right now, and there won't be any competition because the two extracts are patented. So anybody who's going to copy it is going to, be under legal attack.
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to. There is. I don't want to make this too long, but there is the Klamax has a lot of products such as spirulina does have the ability to release some stem cell activity, but it doesn't have the ability to move those stem cells into the tissues like Klamax and Klamax.
Right.
Could you comment on that?
Sorry. Yeah, there was another call. Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know if it's true. Yes, of course, there might be some help into releasing. In a way, anything that has anti-inflammatory activity might have some activity on helping the stem cell release. But again, as you said, there is no further action into the ability to migrate because that so far has been shown to be only by phenylethylamine, the ability to get these molecules, the stem cells molecule into the tissues. And I mean, I don't, one thing, I mean, we can get into science and everything, but I personally haven't seen any product like with the testimonials we have on people regrowing their hair or repairing very big scars. And I mean, all things that are clearly related to a very powerful and very fast stem cell activity. So,
Dr. S., I had a patient who complained to me about the Klamax because now her eyelashes are brushing on her glasses.
Right.
She has to curl her eyelashes now.
Exactly. So I challenge everyone to find another product that does that. All right.
Anything else? Well,
Today's time. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Scoglio, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, and we'll let, if you could talk to Rajen about the release, looking forward to your booklet. And this is going to be exciting.
Yeah. I will talk. In fact, the call I had on the other phone was him, so I'll call him back right now.
Oh, very good.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Good
you
to hear
very
you.
much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye. Bye.